Welcome to Garden Valley Church Podcasts. We are so looking forward to having you join us today.
Well, hi guys. Welcome to the Youth Culture Podcast.
Hi, Garden Valley Church. I'm Emily Lowry, and we have Brandon Stone with us today.
What's up, guys?
And we are here talking to you guys a little bit about the Youth Culture Podcast. So, as some of you may have noticed, we missed the last episode drop. There's been a lot going on the last 6-ish months or so, and Brandon's going to tell you a little bit about that. We did have a number of episodes still planned for season 1 of Youth Culture. Yes. We are going to be doing a second season, so stay tuned for that. That'll start in September of 2023. We're super excited about it. I've heard just a little bit about what it is that Brandon has on his heart for 2023 and 2024 in this second season, and it's going to be incredible. But as some of you may already know, some things happened in Brandon's life back in November that he's going to share about that kind of shifted what we were doing here and our timelines. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what happened in November that derailed all the things that you had planned for this podcast?
So with the podcast, one, had no idea that we'd do a season 2, season 3 type of thing.
Yes.
Just be a few episodes, but man, being able to do this with you has been really awesome. In the past, I don't know if you guys have watched or listened, but Emily Lowry was one of my youth leaders when I was in teen ministry, doing youth ministry, and so as a teenager. And so it's just been super awesome to do this with Emily, and that she has kind of helped facilitate making this happen. What happened to me was in November, I was actually in a major car accident, hence why I have a scar on my face and a few other little details on the side. But I feel like I've learned and grown so much since then. I feel like I've kind of slowed down a little bit in the sense of being the go-go kind of personality, and really just learning to not just adapt to life, but love life a little bit more. And so I'm excited to do this episode with you guys.
Yeah, definitely. So back mid-November, Brandon was prepping for Remix's annual pie auction. So if anyone is a part of Garden Valley listening, you guys are very familiar with it, but it is the sole fundraiser that Remix does each year, and it brings in their entire budget for the following year. And the Thursday prior, Brandon was involved in a car accident leaving the church. We all drove past it coming in, didn't know it was you at the time. Yeah. Just knew that it looked, I assume you've seen the pictures from now. Okay. Yes. Just wanted to make sure. It looked really, really bad. I have a background in insurance as well as leading youth, but my primary background is I spent about 10 years in insurance. I've seen a lot of really bad car accidents, a lot of fatalities. That one I was sure was a fatal accident.
Which is what they had said originally.
Yes.
This was a fatality.
Yeah, so it was put over the scanner that it was a presumed fatal accident. We drove past it. I was like, there's no way. Like, that definitely is. And then we were hearing, hey, it might be Brandon. And at that point, all the staff is in the building. All of us have driven past it. Yeah. And I called one of my childhood best friends who is an EMT locally and asked her, I was like, hey, are you on shift? She was like, yes. I was like, I know you can't give details. I know you can't tell me anything. I was like, but we need to know, was the accident fatal? And she was like, let me walk outside, and gave me just brief details and let me know that no, as of right now, Brandon was still alive, which that alone was a miracle in and of itself. So
it should have been split in half and died is what they told me. The bottom of the card came out. And because I was in the driver's seat, if I didn't end up getting in the car crash to the right side, but being in the driver's side, it would have completely split me in half. So it's just amazing how the timing, and I've talked with people about this since, and I've talked with Brandon a little bit about it and sent him a voice memo while he was recovering. Wrecked me.
But the timing that God had in this for weeks prior, knowing that this was going to be happening, making sure that the scheduling was aligned perfect with the EMTs that were on site that are some of the best in the county, making sure that those that were responding at the hospital were the best in the county, making sure that those that were flying Brandon up to Portland were Christians, and literally praying over Brandon the entire flight. And the people up at Emmanuel Legacy that were praying over Brandon and with his family, and just
and their care. Oh my goodness.
Yes, the care that they provided, that just that's naturally ingrained in that hospital, but just the particular people that got assigned to him and worked with him and encountered him in this moment of intense crisis was nothing short of God. And obviously, as you guys now kind of are starting to realize, this was shifting a lot of things that Brandon had planned for the end of the year, beginning of this year, and really shifting probably what you had planned for the youth group and just everything in general. But Brandon was up in Portland for just a little over a month, a couple days over a month, which is insane, by the way.
That itself is crazy.
My friend, because she kept tabs on your progress the entire time, both for me as well as talking with doctors and nurses up there. She was like, this is nothing short of crazy. She grew up in the church, luckily, so she kind of knew, but she's not necessarily serving God at the time. But she was like, this is nothing short of miraculous. This is miracles from our childhood that we've seen, miraculous, because you shouldn't have been able to come home a month later. It's insane.
Should be in recovery, not driving, not back to normal life.
Oh, yeah.
Quote.
He drives.
It's crazy.
All the time. He drives past the accident scene all the time.
No
I figured you would take an alternative route. I would. But it's your testimony in this is just nothing short of crazy, insane God.
Crazy, insane God. We're going to put that on a shirt.
Right? And sorry if I cough. I'm getting over a cold, but yeah, it is. It's crazy, insane God, just the way that he has worked everything for the good of him, because this could have been so different. Talk to us a little bit, because there was a second driver that was involved in the accident, a second vehicle that had hit you. What is your relationship now with that driver that you didn't know prior?
Technically speaking, I still haven't met him, but I know from Kirsty and my dad talking, they have kind of kept tabs on him, and they got to pray with him, so that's pretty amazing. And so, if you're watching this, love to get coffee and get together. And so it's just been crazy last couple of months, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. And he's, as he said, he has a new normal.
Which is not being at the church and working 5-6 days a week like it was.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say, is he's kind of shifted and had basically what equates to work-life balance for most people, which I think you needed.
Shouldn't have done that to begin with. We've all talked about that.
But no, you're young. I mean, I did it when I was your age. I was here all the time, and you can facilitate that schedule for a season, and then but clearly the Lord was like, hey, no, he needs to shift that now, not later, now. So talk about kind of the lessons that God has given you in this. That you want to share with the people of youth culture as we close out this season.
I would love to. And the first thing on my brain before moving on is I want to say, for those listening, and maybe you're thinking to yourself, how could a God that is so good cause something like that to happen? And I want to say to you that I don't believe God caused the car accident to happen. The Bible talks about in Romans 8:28 that he uses things for good. And, I will share a quick story. Just before the wreck, a couple of days before, we had just had our very first concert in Roseburg with music and with the youth kids, and it was awesome. And it really felt like we were building that momentum, and it was just really exciting, and thinking about planning the future and what that looks like for the youth ministry even. And so all that to say, I went in the side room that I had never been into, and I was putting my gear and my guitar stuff away, and I felt like the Spirit spoke to me. Said, Brandon, something is going to happen, and I need to know if you trust me. Now, you can look at that and go, oh my gosh. He knew that there was going to be a car accident, right? Like, you could look at that in a lot of different ways. I look at it more in the sense of, like, I think God knew there were things that were negative that were going to happen. Maybe it wasn't a car accident. It could have been something completely different. But God has used such a tragic situation to display his glory and his goodness. I mean, I've heard stories of people coming back to faith, and not just coming back to faith, but like deepening that relationship with God. Childhood friends or friends from being in high school that they're like, hey, we need to reconnect. It's been years. I heard you were in a car accident. Going and being able to like talk with them, pray with them. Like, it's just been pretty surreal. And in my heart, I feel like it's kind of just getting started. And so.
Yeah, and I think it rolls back to the reality of people talk, free will versus predetermination.
Yeah.
And a lot of times our habits are our free will. Like, we go through and we're habitually doing these things.
Yeah.
You're habitually barely stopping at a stop sign and rolling through. Or you're leaving work at a really early hour, so it's foggy and cloudy and you can't see clearly. And all these things that can lead up to this accident.
Correct.
That God knew, because it's very clear, like, his timing is real. His timing is in life.
With the EMTs being lined up that day, like,
oh my gosh,
the
like,
people helping at the hospitals, like, it's insane.
I thought for sure there was no way that friend was going to be on site, let alone respond. I was like, this is my one connection. And if we can get info from someone that's on the ground, like, that person walked you to the plane that was taking you away. Like, there were people with you that God placed very strategically. And I'm a firm believer in free will. Our choices are ours, and God allows us that. He places opportunities in front of us to have different paths. And I think things might have been different if you had told God that, no, you don't.
Correct.
You don't trust him, but you
thought
have
that through as well. Like, God, would you still have allowed me to go through a car accident, even if I responded that way? And in my heart, it's like, I feel like I've known God in such a real, not that it's different from everybody else. It's just like my connection, my relationship with God. I feel like I've always trusted him and had a trust to God to go into crazy dark places or whatever, and, bring the gospel. So to be in a car accident and have this whole experience happen, I'm not thrown off by it.
And also to trust that he has the right people already in place in all the areas that you were involved in, that meant that you had to be taken out of.
Yep. That his plan was good.
Yes, that everything could be handled while God did something with you.
Yes.
So when you were cognizant enough to realize, oh, I had these 800 things going on that I just literally dropped, what happens now?
Yep.
And it is what it is. Like, whether you had people that could step into that place or not, it was what it was. Like, luckily, you had people that were able to, like the youth.
An awesome youth team.
Yeah, I was gonna say your youth team is stellar, and it's nothing short of God, given how we had everything set up prior. That you had shared with Wendy a lot of the pie auction stuff.
And she was kind of the one to help make it happen, because that's not necessarily my strong suit.
And because of that meant, like, hey, it was really easy 3 days before the pie auction for her to send the list, and we started calling everybody and saying, hey, we can't go into details, we have to cancel. You'll get more information later. And that just brings a whole nother layer into it, because I really feel like God knew we weren't going to have the pie auction this year. You guys were not going to have the budget.
Yeah, right.
Because last year was a record-breaking year in what you brought in, like almost double what you normally brought in.
It's like he knew.
Yes, I think God was very clearly preparing the way to open other doors for you and for the youth group. And it's crazy to think of because all of us were in this state of unknown for weeks. Or what felt like weeks. When I went back and looked at the timeline, it wasn't weeks.
Because Christy and my dad, my dad told me, he's like, we actually took photos every day, not because we wanted to see craziness that happened, but to show the progress and how God had completely.
And it was, insane. Like, if you guys go and look at Brandon's Facebook page, because Christy was pretty religious in tagging him, or go to Christy Stone's Facebook page, you'll see, and like it's real time.
Yeah.
And it felt like weeks because things were so crazy and chaotic, and Brandon did house 95% of the youth group stuff with him. So on the ground, we were scrambling and running and trying to get in touch with the youth, and
learned a lot through that of what not to do.
Yeah,
when it comes
everybody
to
learned a lot
ministry.
through continuity, and it was not just the youth group's continuity, but and then also as a staff realizing like there's a very real possibility on the table that we may not have our youth leader moving forward, in whatever capacity that may look like, whether that was you were headed into a new season where you wanted to step out of youth ministry or whatever it was going to look like. And all the emotions that went on with you being in that accident. And it was not weeks, like it was days. Like you were pulling your tube out days later.
That
like
was
you
crazy.
were awake.
There were stories of Christy would tell me, she's like, they put a feeding tube in you and it got to the point where you were ripping it out. They zip tied it to your nose and you finally ripped that off.
Yep.
And
like continually.
The next day or something like that, somewhere in that time frame, that was when I woke up and came to. It was after.
Yes. It was like, I remember relaying the stories to my EMT friend and her being like, there's no way that's happening. I'm like, no, I'm literally like, Christy's texting me from the hospital or from the hotel because the nurses called. Like, this is legitimately happening. Like, this is not, oh, we're so out of it with everything that we're now hallucinating, which was a very real possibility. Like, I was like, no, this is like actual things that are happening up in Portland. And seeing the youth just go from this panic worry to this level of hope and trust in God that I've never really seen the youth exhibit. And I'm not a part of youth staff anymore. I stepped out a number of years ago. So I'm a member of the regular general congregation. So I'm not even seeing what's going on upstairs. So I can't even imagine what it was like upstairs. And just seeing the hope that blossomed with the youth and then with our community and how they rallied around you and your family and just covering you guys in prayers throughout Douglas County. And realistically, because I hacked into your email, knowing that there were nationwide email chains that were going out in relation to you,
To the prayers.
knowing that this was something that throughout the United States and probably abroad, people were praying to make sure that you had this miraculous recovery. You had what is probably going to be written about in textbooks on how you shifted and changed. Like looking at Brandon right now, I think it's pretty easy to say, like, no one would say, oh, 4 months ago you were in a car accident that you shouldn't have walked away from.
Right.
Like your face is healed insanely well.
Oh man, the
Like,
scar, when I
dude.
first woke up, the scar was like this big. It was so massive and my face was like really swollen.
You looked like Aaron.
Oh gosh.
Okay, so
We gotta edit this out. No, I'm just kidding.
no, because Aaron's just fuller in the
you're right.
face.
Yes, correct.
I
Totally look just like Aaron.
I 100%, when I saw the photo when your mom sent it, when Christy sent it to me, I was with Donovan and I'm like, are we sure that's Brandon? It looks like Aaron. And Donovan laughed. My husband laughed. And he was like, yeah, it's because his face is swollen, Emily. I was like, but it looks like Aaron.
We look very similar. Aaron's just built a lot more.
He's
swollen.
stockier and he's just, he has more baby face. It's cute. But yeah, you looked like Aaron. And I was like, it would be weird if Aaron was driving Brandon's car, but probably not unheard of.
Yeah.
It was trippy. But yeah, the scar on your face, like I
It
saw
was huge. It wasn't
Yes.
just like this guy. It's crazy.
when my friend saw you, she was like, his face is bad. I'm like, it's bad. And
Let
then
me show you a photo. No, I'm just
right.
kidding.
And then I saw pictures from when you were at Mercy before you were sent up to Portland,
Yes,
before
correct.
it was
That
stitched
photo.
up. And it was like, it very clearly was bad. Like the fact that you can probably on camera barely see his scar is insane.
Thank God for the surgeons, and the doctors, and all those people. I had someone message me on a friend of mine on social media, and they were like, "How do you feel about all the people that took care of you? Yes, I know that God saved you and He, His mercy, but like, aren't you thankful?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I need to," in the sense of just saying thank you more, in the sense of that, because there were so many people behind the scenes that I wasn't able to, connect with or say thank you to. And so it's
That we're just so strategically placed.
so strategic. And yes, God ultimately, yes, His glory, He's the one that did it. I'm just so thankful at the same time that there were people that were there the day of the accident
And that
and through it.
I think Christians in a lot of ways get a bad rap because we say, oh, we want God to heal us. We want God to do these things. And, but also the reality is like doctors and nurses and surgeons and EMTs, like
Amen.
by going after what they're passionate about and what they are good at, they're honoring God in that. Like those are God-given talents. You don't get into a field like that that's insane. Like the process to become a doctor is crazy. Like you don't get into a field like that and get to do those kind of things without it being a God thing, whether they believe in God or not, because it's science. I get that it is a hard thing to wrap your mind around with God, but your case, like, but God, like there is no way.
I don't know how else to explain it. I've tried to, help my friends that don't believe in that sense, but it is God, and you can only point to God.
Yes.
And those that are even listening, maybe you're still kind of up in the air and trying to figure this whole thing out. I can't point to anything else but God.
Yeah, because it's God gifted the surgeons and He gifted
Yes,
the
He
doctors
did.
and He gifted the nurses and He gifted the EMTs and He gifted the pilots and all of these people that way He was also able to strategically place them and accelerate all of these things that their hands were able to facilitate because of their God-breathed gifts. And
Amen.
I've talked about it before. Like I'm a proponent, like mental health, go to the doctor. Like if you're sick, go to the doctor. I say, as I did not go to the doctor with my cold. But it's one of those things where like without all those people,
Yeah,
obviously the outcome would have been dramatically different.
correct.
There's no other way to say it. Like without the people that were able to create the machines for you to get the scans so they could see what they needed to see. And there's all of these ripple effect pieces that like you're here.
I know.
And you're walking upstairs. For those of you that don't know, our studio is
The first
up
week,
on
though?
the second.
Trying to get upstairs.
Oh my gosh. The reason why we missed a week is because I was like, I don't know if Brandon's ready. Like, it's a lot to go up the stairs. And then he happened to mention, he was like, oh yeah, I'm going upstairs. Like his office is upstairs. I thought he was just chilling in the lobby this entire time and working from there. No.
Yeah, I've been here for like the past month. I was talking to your mom yesterday, and she's like, I had no idea you were here on Tuesday. I said, oh, I've been here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Wednesday, I come a little later because of the youth group instead of being here at like 5:30 in the morning. But she just had no idea, and I was like, oh, I probably should let the staff know that, that
I knew
you're
it.
working
And that's how I mentioned it to her, I think on Monday or something. And I was like, hey, like, it sounds like Brandon's going to shift where he comes in on Wednesdays instead of Tuesdays. And she was like, he's here on Tuesdays? I was like,
yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah, he's here on Tuesdays. She was like, oh, I should probably talk to him and
I'm
find out
so
what his schedule
thankful
is.
that you guys have been able to work with me in that sense of like, if you need to come in once a week and still do the
Yes.
work with the youth, absolutely.
And a lot of that's
And
been
not feeling
accessible by
pressured.
like
You know,
you have an amazing youth leadership.
yes.
Like
Yeah.
hands down, God has placed some great people that have been working in youth ministry for decades, longer than you've been alive, longer than I've been alive, really, that were able to step in and handle a lot of the administrative pieces that normally you'd have to be in the building for.
Sure.
That way you can go through and just go at your pace and connect with the kids and focus on that and your healing and nothing else. Like, don't worry about the planning of everything because Brian has that handled.
Yeah.
Because that's ultimately what it came down to is Brian. You guys have met Brian probably in
He's
other
been on the Youth
episodes.
Culture podcast.
Yes. So Brian Bandelman, like
Carl
he
as
stepped
well.
in, and Carl Wells has also stepped in.
Also been on the Youth Culture podcast.
Yes. I haven't seen Carl as much because he has a regular day job,
Yeah,
but
right.
like you have an amazing staff that rallied around and that also has been able to help you by setting up all the procedures and getting everything done in continuity. And now you have a remix email, which I don't know why we didn't have a remix
Correct.
email before,
Yeah.
but we didn't have a remix email.
Yeah. And all the details that Brandon had before on his phone could have been put on that email. And so just we learned a lot in this process.
Yes. So it's just been
I've learned a lot for sure.
an amazing process of God's goodness in the midst of crisis.
Tragedy.
And there's not really any other way to say it. Like, because looking at the trajectory of like just what our church has gone through from beginning of November until March.
Yeah.
Like we had your accident in November. We had one of our associate pastors step out of ministry in December. January, thankfully, was quiet as far as the church goes. And then February, our lead pastor announced his retirement and retired. And then March, we installed our new pastor. Like it's been
a lot for
a whirlwind ride.
It's been crazy.
And for you, it was probably to a certain degree kind of nice to be able to take a backseat and not have to be here during all the transition. And you can come in and have a nice clean slate.
To a point.
Yeah. Because there were weeks, as any of you guys that have gone through transitions in leadership, whether church or not, there are weeks there where it's very chaotic and insane and can feel overwhelming at times, good and bad.
Yeah, sure.
And there's lots of lessons learned on, we didn't realize that this person's email was connected to these 800 things.
Sure.
That we clearly didn't learn our lesson when Brandon got into his accident and continued the same way that we were before.
Oh God.
But like you guys, like Brandon's been able to, he took an unintentional sabbatical and recovered.
Sabbatical,
And
yeah, that's good.
that's a nice way to
It is.
say.
You're right. I get you.
It's a nice politically correct way to say you got into a car accident and almost died.
Gosh.
And come back. And I think what you guys are going to see in the second season is like, this is a whole new, like Brandon 2.0.
Sure. Just like the youth culture.
Yes. However, let's not do youth culture season 3 the same way we're ending youth culture.
I'm
season
totally
1.
with
Okay.
you on that.
Okay, good. Okay. As long as we're on the same page there.
Oh man.
But yeah, I think that you guys are going to see like there's a new fresh anointing over you.
Yeah.
I think this is a new season for you, a whole new chapter and a section in your life that I don't think that you were planning. Like you had very clear written out plans.
I thought they were written down pretty clear, you know.
You got a very interesting lesson on God does not work based off of our plans.
Well, did that happen when he told Noah to build the ark? You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Of course,
there's
he
been,
told him how to, what it looks like and laid out all the plans and the details, but
yeah, I have a feeling that Noah bucked it a whole lot more than is in scripture and didn't believe him. Like, I need to build an ark. Like, there's no reason we're in a landlocked state.
sure.
This is silly. You're going crazy. Please stop spending time with the monkeys.
It's like our live stream getting set up before COVID happened. Do you remember that?
Yeah, so I remember the initial live stream setup, and then I remember when COVID hit
Yeah.
and Sean Cano pulled,
Yeah.
I don't know, it had to be 16 to 20 hour days. It was intense because I was working graveyard at the time, and he was still at the church at 10 o'clock when
Yes,
I went
right.
on shift. Which was fantastic for me because I was running social media. So I was actually able to talk to somebody in the church.
Right.
But I don't know that he slept at home. Yeah, it's just, yeah, there's been a number of things where it's like, I don't think that this is the right way to do it. God, you have to be wrong. Like, and I think that would have happened if God had approached you that
You're
day
gonna
and
be
was
in a
like,
car accident,
hey,
right?
I'm going to put you in a life-threatening, you shouldn't walk away from this car accident. Do you trust me? There probably would have been I don't think that's the best route to go. Like, even if you know the outcome. So it's a lot easier if it's just a simple, do you trust me?
And in that, I know that some people are probably listening, whether you're a believer or even maybe you're unchurched and haven't been to a church or haven't in a long time. It can be scary to think, oh, if God is so real and so huge and so big, why would he cause something like that to happen? Like I said a while back in the video, and it's like, God's plan for us is bigger than ourselves and our life. And I don't know the repercussions of what God using this situation for good is going to look like. All I know is he was able to use a vessel that said yes. Now, what I'm not saying is you have to say, if God says to you, do you trust me? And you say yes, so you're going to get hit by a car. That's not at all what I'm
Oh,
saying.
God, no.
Yeah, right.
That is not a normal outcome.
Correct. This is a very interesting situation and outcome. I'm just so thankful in my relationship and my walk with God, how I've grown through it. And you were asking, what are some of the lessons? There was one thing I was thinking about being in the hospital for all those weeks. I couldn't do for God. Newsflash, Christians, we never have to do for God. When we receive his love and understand that it's God's love that causes us to have that passion and that wanting to be a part, whether it's in a church or serving in a community or whatever it looks like, he placed that in us. Versus I need to do this because if I got to make sure I get all my boxes checked and I got to make sure I'm praying and I'm reading my Bible. And if that's what it's all about, we've completely lost the sight of why Jesus came. And we're coming up on Easter. And so
Yes.
it's like,
Well,
it's the perfect time for people to experience.
yes. And I think relationship with God is a lot like it's friendship.
Yeah.
And you have genuine friendship or you have toxic friendship. And you have toxic friendship where it is like it's all about what can you do for that other person, your friend. And then you have genuine friendship. And I have a few different friends that I can fully say like this is a genuine friendship on both sides. Where my son's stepmom is one of them. And I'll use her as an example. And that's a whole different story on its own. But how we got to being best friends. But
Yeah.
like she and I, it's just a regular dialogue all day long.
Yeah.
Like just back and forth. And that's what God wants. Like he doesn't want you doing all these things. He wants you just sitting and spending time going back and forth, mundane, stupid things. Like
Right.
yesterday
I get
we
you.
were on Marco Polo going back and forth on the best way to purge rooms in our house of excess clutter. Like that's what God wants to do is he just wants to talk back and forth. And you had weeks where basically he forced you into a situation.
It was kind of a forcing. You're
Forced
right.
you into
It's-
a situation where like you could not do anything
Yeah.
except
Physically. Right.
spend time with him and just be enveloped in his presence.
Yeah.
And you had people around you that were praying and singing over you. And like I saw videos of your dad,
Oh,
like
man, that
full
wrecks me.
on, like just singing over you and praising God and bringing his presence into the hospital room where
My mom singing over me. I mean, it's just amazing.
how many of us can say that we've had 4 weeks where literally all we are doing is we're having meals brought to us and we're spending time with God? Like
In that,
Brandon.
yeah.
In this room, it's Brandon.
Right. In that, probably the biggest takeaway from the whole podcast in the year would be this moment. And I really mean it with all my heart. Like, my first day coming back to earth, quote unquote, out of the coma and being awake, I really felt the Lord speak to me similar to he did in this side room. And he's like, do you trust me? And this whole thing. Again, not saying that God caused the car accident. He used the situation to display his glory and his goodness. And I've learned so much through it, and so have all of us. And so God used it for good, and I believe still is, and probably will for a long time. In that, when I first came back and was awake, I felt the voice of the Spirit speak to me and say this: Brandon, my son, you've become so busy in your ministry and your walk of life and business, all these things. And all I wanted to do in this moment where you can't do anything for me, quote unquote, is I just want you to receive my love and know that my love for you is real and that you don't have to do a thing for my love to affect you and touch you. And I'm crying. I'm in the hospital, you know. And the roommate guy next to me, he is at the time, well, I don't think he was a believer. And so we kind of opened up talking a little bit about that because he hasn't really had that in a relationship, family-wise. And I'm grateful that I do understand what it's like to come from parenting situation where maybe it wasn't always perfect, but it's been so intentional about, you know, like with my mom and my dad, like how they connect with me now. And that's what it felt like in that car accident and coming into the hospital. It was like, yeah, I can't do anything for God, and that's okay. I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to allow him to love on me and let me really experience that. And he healed parts of my heart from things from my childhood, trauma from my past relationships, etc., that I was holding on to. But I became so busy trying to do the thing for God to distract myself. And I feel like through this process, I've experienced a healing that I don't think would have happened had this situation not happened.
And I think even if it did, it would have looked very different and over a much longer time period, which means your ripple effect, the ripple effect of your yes to the healing would have looked dramatically different because it would have been in a different season. You would have been at a different age, like all of these different variables that come into play. And it's hard to know what the true ripple effect of this car accident is and the testimony that's coming from it. Like, I was talking with my son the other day and I was like, our ripple is, it's a really bad comparison. I can't believe I'm saying this on film. Our ripple effect is like 5 degrees to Kevin Bacon.
Oh, okay.
Like, not inappropriate bad, just like this is
Kevin Bacon.
like this dates me. Because like you don't think, oh, it only takes 5 people to get to Kevin Bacon. Like it legitimately does. I've played the game.
Sure.
It's not all that crazy when you really look at how far like your sphere of influence and then one person's sphere of influence and then one person from there, their sphere of influence, like it grows exponentially. Like it's insane when you look at it. And mathematicians have done the work where if you go through and you look at, okay, if I go through and I facilitate bringing 5 people to the Lord, and then each of those 5 people bring 5 people to the Lord, and so on and so forth, like how fast it would be to save the entire world. Like it's
Had changed
not that long.
25 years. Yep.
Yeah.
Before you die.
And it's just, that's the ripple. Like, and your ripple changes when your life changes. And I think your testimony, as we've seen very clearly over the last 4 months, has shifted from what it was previously. And your testimony before was insane. But I really think we're going to end up having to start season 2 with a full, just you talking your testimony and what is laid on your heart in this season, because it's changed.
It has changed.
And that's not bad. Like, it's still for youth. It's still for youth culture, and it's still for culture, and it's shifting that trajectory. And I am super excited. I've said it before on this podcast when we first started. Like, I'm privileged to be able to have watched you grown. Like, I've known Brandon since he was little. Like, I was in youth group little.
Correct.
All the way up to now, and I had the privilege of being one of his youth leaders and sending him off to Bethel School of Ministry and visiting him down there. And it's been a wild roller coaster ride is probably the best way to put it, because there's been really insane highs and some really weird lows.
Weird lows.
There's been some really weird lows. You caught French fries on fire at my house.
Well, that wasn't as bad as a couple of years ago at camp when that one of the kids in the youth group burned up the Guns N' Roses t-shirt and it about burned down the cabin. Like
That is amazing.
summer camp, right? Like that's highlight.
You know, it's not as good of a story as us almost catching the carpet on fire in the youth room, doing an illustration.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ever visit our youth room, look for the giant round burn mark. That was
carpet out.
that was one of the most ill-thought illustrations Wendy and I have ever done. But I've just been very privileged to watch this, and I'm insanely excited for this next season for you. And getting to see what happens, and like my son's in your youth group, and
so
like that's
awesome.
surreal. But getting to see how this shifts Douglas County and the youth within Douglas County, because I think what we're going to see as our youth group enters this new season and our church enters a new season of a new lead pastor who admittedly is significantly younger than our former lead pastor, which is fair because he'd been here for 22 years. I think that we're going to see a dramatic shift in what this looks like for Garden Valley and for Douglas County. And I think that you are key in this. So I'm excited. I'm excited for our youth. I'm excited for them really being able to grasp what God says when he talks about being fully alive, and you having a very practical application story that is coming from this accident on what God can do.
I remember I was telling you when you asked me, you and Sean were talking to me about this whole podcast idea, and I was like,
Sean Beer or Sean Connor?
Sean Connor.
Okay.
Sorry, my bad. And I was like, do they even know that like I've filmed a couple of different episodes of a podcast? This is crazy. What was it called? The Fully Alive podcast. And so the idea of, let's bring that back, call it Fully Alive. And then we settled on the Youth Culture Podcast. And it's been so amazing to see kind of the heart of that still be very much involved with the Youth Culture Podcast.
Yes. And we're a year out from when we initially started planning season 1 of Youth Culture and Filming, which is crazy to think of. But I remember
how far we.
I know. I remember sitting down in one of our meeting rooms with a giant whiteboard and planning it all out, and just
I still have that
diving in. I think I have one too. And just diving in, and I'm excited for the reality that like everything that has happened, God is going to use as a platform for his good.
Absolutely.
And I think that he's going to use you as a vessel to kind of just rocket shoot you into the atmosphere. Like, it's going to be crazy insane.
And I still, in my brain, have no idea what even the next month or couple months of my life look like. All I know is I'm just saying yes to him.
Yeah.
And
You don't have to do huge plans.
Yeah, right, exactly. And that was something we talked about, is like, you don't necessarily need to have this huge drawn out plan like before.
Yep.
Trying to, make sure things are happening planned out, but trusting the Lord through that and hearing his spirit and following his voice. I think that we'll touch on this in the new podcast, but like the whole idea of living by the Spirit and not just Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, but that every single day, we have an opportunity to be the light and to be the face of Jesus to somebody. And even those that are maybe listening and you're like, oh, that's not for me, or, oh, I'm still trying to figure that out. Like, I was just talking to a young adult this last night, because he said prayer is really hard for him, and hearing God's voice is really hard. I said, man, I've been there. I totally understand. So my encouragement to him was like, before you go and do what you need to do in the checklist, right? Just for a moment, recognize that God is with you.
Mm-hmm.
And even something as simple, as, God, here I am. Pray that and then you begin to pray. But it's just that connection. It's a friendship. It's not, God is way up here and I'm way down here. And it's this.
Yeah, and there is this assumption that you have to have a prayer that you say.
Yeah, sure.
Like, and it has to be very, I guess, religious, really. Sure. And I'll use air quotes because that's a construct that I think is ridiculous and shouldn't be there, but it is. Like, it's a spirit that's there, is the spirit of religiousness. But 99 times out of 100, as I'm praying, like, I'm just pouring out whatever's in my brain. Like, sometimes it makes sense.
Most times it doesn't, right?
Yes. But most of the time, I'm literally like 9 times out of 10, I'm in my car because I have kids, so I drive all the time. And I'm praying. I have soaking music on and I'm just saying whatever's going on. I'm frustrated. I'm irritated. I'm exhausted. I have 3 kids, so my life is hectic and busy at times. And like, God's my best friend. So talk to him like he's your best friend, like you would a friend. Like, and sometimes it's going to be really calm and clean and serene and your life is going really good. So like, everything is the right Christian language. And other times you're just really mad and frustrated and you don't know what to do and you need some answers and you're going to your best friend for advice. And he'll give it to you.
Or sometimes crying out. I mean, the Bible talks about that, right? Like, crying out to God. God, I need, not just I need you, but like.
Like, if you read Psalms, like David, a man after God's own heart, like, I don't know that there's a more transparent book in the Bible going through seasons of life. So just rest in that. Don't feel like you have a to-do list. Like, get rid of the to-do list.
Yeah.
Let me rephrase that. Set your to-do list off to the side because there are times for your to-do list. I'm a big to-do list person. He is not.
I'm learning to, though, and really appreciating that.
So you don't forget things.
Yes, correct.
But there is times for to-do lists to check mark things like, hey, I have these 10 things I need to do today. Mm-hmm. But in your Christian walk, you don't need a to-do list. Set it off to the side. Put on some music if you can't sit in quiet. I can't sit in quiet. Like, that's just not a thing for me. And just talk to your best friend. And like I said, sometimes mine are super great, awesome, perfect Christian language. And other times, a lot of times, because I have 2 young kids and an almost teenager, it is not super friendly Christian language because I'm just at my wit's end and exhausted. And I'm talking to my best friend and asking, like, please give me something I haven't thought of, something I haven't done tell me how I'm supposed to be at peace with this. Tell me how they're supposed to be at peace with this. Like, I need you. I'm mad. They did this stupid thing for the umpteenth time.
Right.
Because kids are kids and that's what they do. Talk to your best friend.
But
Like,
he wants the honesty and the transparency. The
Yes.
whole putting, we'll probably
We're in
go over this
process.
in the second season, but it's like the whole putting the mask on thing so that I look the Christian part, I'm talking the Christian part, and God's like, the whole time, I just want you to be honest with me with where you're at.
yeah, like it's
Talking to your
not,
best friend. You
he's
know?
not about doing, he's about relationship. And
And we do out of relationship.
yes,
You know.
like there will come a point where God says, okay, I need you to do X, Y, Z.
Sure.
It probably will be, I need you to go and give this person a hug and love on them because someone needs something tangible in that moment. Or not a hug, like whatever the scenario is. But like God wants authenticity.
He does.
Like that's what he's big on. And yes, the closer you get to him, the more appropriate your language will be in your conversations. Like you're not going to be throwing cuss words because you're so mad.
Yeah.
But I've been a Christian most of my life. I still get there and I'm having conversations and I'm mad and hurt and upset and I don't understand. And I'm mad that he let it happen.
Yeah, sure.
And typically I'll put a time limit on myself on doing that and being mad and saying, okay, I have 10 minutes. And then I just need to sit and listen to him.
That's
So
the part
he
of
can
it
give
is
me the why.
letting you process that and then listening to him versus
Yes.
just processing it and then going on with your day and trying to make everything happen.
Yes. So
Stopping
just
and
be encouraged. Like,
taking that time.
and I can tell you, well, I can tell you that the majority of our pastoral staff, because I don't know our lead pastor very well yet, but I'd be willing to bet him too. But all of our pastoral staff goes through seasons where they have to sit with God and ask the angry why question.
Sure.
And I've done it as recently as within the last 3-ish months.
Sure.
And just asking why. Why are you letting this happen? Why are you letting this be the decisions that are being made? I'm angry. I don't agree. I'm wrestling with this. How do I come under the authority of this? Like,
Yeah.
why? I need to know. So that's okay. Brandon had 4 months to be able to be angry and ask the why, and then essentially get over it and hear God's voice in the movement that he wants to create from this.
Yeah.
So I am super excited for season 2.
Me too. I'm still.
He is super excited for season 2. I'm actually kind of disappointed that we're in March, so we have about 5 months before a new episode airs, but I get sneak peeks. So if you want to find me, I might drop a few sneak peeks for you. Because
Let's do that.
I'm the marketing director.
know,
I can
you
do that.
Totally do that.
So tune in. If you have any questions, if you want prayer, if you need anything in the interim, we are here. My email's emily@gardenvalleychurch.org. The best way to get a hold of Brandon is remix@gardenvalleychurch.org. He and the couple of other youth staff have access to that. We'll meet up for coffee. We'll hang out. We'll pray with you. Like whatever it is that you need, we're here.
I had just one closing. I don't know if it's a closing thought, but just something that was in my head. And perhaps you've been listening to this podcast the whole season, and you feel like you haven't started that relationship with God. In this moment, I just want you to close your eyes. And it's so simple. Say, God, here I am. I don't know what it looks like, but I give you my life. I want to start an authentic relationship with you. Thank you that you love me and that I have purpose So I bless you in Jesus' name, amen. And if you've been
Amen.
listening and you've been in church your whole life, but that thing we were talking about a little bit ago, or maybe you're even involved in a ministry, you're a pastor, you're a leader of some sort in some kind of capacity, and you've been the doer, I want you to take a moment and just close your eyes. Say, God, here I am. Thank you that you see me. Thank you that you know me already. And right now I receive your love. Fill me with your spirit so that through relationship I can give out. So Father, I just bless them in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Well, thank you for tuning into the Youth Culture Podcast.
Yes.
This is season 1.
Yes.
2.0 is coming up.
I'm so excited to be back and also close out the season with Brandon. But yeah, congrats on finishing season 1.
We did it.
So excited for season 2. So we will see you guys again in September. And if you have any questions, like I said, rewind a little ways. You have Brandon's and my email addresses. And like I said, any questions, any prayer that you need, whether you're local to Roseburg or you're out of town, we have phones.
Yep.
We can FaceTime, Zoom, whatever you need. We'll talk to you guys soon.
Love you guys. Peace.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're interested in checking out more of our podcasts as they come available, please download our app in your device's app store or check us out on your podcast platform at Garden Valley Church. We look forward to seeing you next time.